Jurisdiction. So jurisdiction, consider like this screen is a jurisdiction, and in there is all the beliefs about what you feel are the legalities of jurisdiction. And most of us have a box. We started out with the box. We were educated on a box of beliefs of how the world works and what is right and wrong and good and bad and all that stuff. And as you have your experiences in life, everyone started to see things differently than what they were actually told. Some, it was all incoherence. They never questioned it. They never questioned it. Other people started questioning, and they might have been considered the rebels or the black sheep or the odd one out, or why does that one in that family think that way? So overall, in our whole world, we have this system. So this is how I was explaining it last night to the two lovely RCMP officers that unexpectedly showed up at my door. So I said, they are in this system over here, this legal system that's been created. Okay, when each of you and I were born, every single person, I said, you were born. You came out of your mother's womb. There you were a living, breathing little baby. And they said, yes. And I said, before you were given a name, you were already existing, right? And they're like, uh-huh. And I said, that's the natural world. The natural world is you were given life, you were given breath, you were given freedom. You were given freedom to express. Wow, that's a big, right? Then they gave a name, and then the legal system over here said you need to create an identity. Now, some of you might remember things like, especially in Europe, you'll see Johnson is a name, right? So Johnson came from, that's Jack, John's son. That's Emily. It was always John's son, even it wasn't John's daughter. Actually, in some of the European countries, they do it like Slav and Slava. So it was an identification still with the family name or the parent. But essentially, this is the system. This is the system of beliefs that has been created. And in this system of beliefs, as I explained to them, they were with me on all this, lawyers have created lots of acts and statutes. They've dotted I's and crossed T's, and they've given us long terms and conditions to basically tell us this is what we need to do, and this is how we need to be. No, that's a doing thing. The being thing is over here. The living, breathing, I'm a living, breathing woman, you're a living, breathing woman or man, you know, in that situation. And you were given, I was given life, and I was given the right to speak if that was the gift I was given. If I was given the right to see, if I was given that gift. Because, you know, there are some people that, you know, are blind or deaf or are physically limited, and that's the body experience they were given in this experience. So they came with that. That's natural law. That's natural justice. That's, you have the right to have your experience. And in a sense, we took this beautiful, flowing, open-ended possibility of anything to be expressed, and each of us is different, each of us is unique, and we tried to put it in the box of this structure of these fictitious systems. And how do they keep you in that fictitious system is they created the birth certificate, right? The birth certificate that identifies you then as this person. So when they say, are you your name? Most people go, yes. No, that's not who you are. That's the name you've been given. I remember Bruno used to say that, my lovely friend. He said, you call me Bruno. That's not who I am. Be with that, right? Each of you, each of us has pretty much been trained. I know there's always, you know, there's people that have known this and been awake from the time they were a child. They just absolutely knew that it didn't make sense. But not all the pieces were together. All the pieces are coming together now. And everybody's seeing or hearing or feeling what they need to feel in this breakdown to breakthrough. So why did the RCMP come visit me yesterday? Because I had faxed a summons to for the lieutenant governor, the premier, the chief medical health officer, and the justice safety minister. So when they arrived unexpectedly, right, I want you to, I'm going to explain this again, as I sort of explained to them. What over here, this system thinks is normal. So it's like 7:30 at night. I, just happened to be working in front of the windows, and they walk up on my deck. Now, they walk up on my deck. These are two men, okay, two men with guns. So the structure over here says, oh, that's okay, because they have the word police on them. They've got these vests and tasers and the things, so that's okay. So then the first thing, as I walk out to greet them, because I knew the one gentleman, I'd met him once before. He went when I filed an incident report on an occurrence on what's going on our island. And the other gentleman I didn't know, but the words out of this, he's like, you're not in trouble, or you're not in trouble. I think that's what he said. So again, that's this jurisdiction they come from, that somehow he thinks his perception of and I was like, I know. And I could see he had the summons that I sent to the lieutenant governor. So this is a very good indicator for those of you that are Canadian. The RCMP, if you understand who they uphold and serve, is they have their allegiance to the crown. This physical thing that we put on the head, like, what the crown? Is it an institution? Is it a corporation? Is it the Queen? Does it have any jurisdiction over Canada at all? Is there a constitution? These are all things, again, we were educated and taught to believe that the Queen really doesn't have any say in Canada. We have this constitution. And do we? Because there are people that will say, no, there's no constitution that was ever signed. There's no actual Queen that is related to, the Queen is there in the person, but she has nothing to do with the crown. The crown isn't this thing they put in this head. This crown is a group of people, maybe something to do with the Privy Council. Again, we were educated in this whole system. So I was educated in this whole system over here, as I explained, that the lieutenant governor, although a formality, is to sign the orders. And those orders, because she's signing them as just a symbol, right, to make into law. Well, here on the island, there is no evidence that the lieutenant governor has signed. There is someone else's signature saying they're authorizing that she signed a true copy, and even the RCMP officers have never heard what a trues is. So I said, is that something you might want to investigate? Why are they going to investigate the ones who they actually is, in a sense, their boss and who they're responsible for? And if you really look through the terms and conditions of the Police Act and the Criminal Code and how this whole system all relates over here that they've created, well, essentially, it's like treason almost if they go against the crown. And is the crown, again, who are they, right? So it's this whole convoluted jurisdiction thing that is made up. Lawful, land, air, water, is what each of us were brought into in this world. We're breathing air, we live on the land, we have access to the water. That's law. Law is love always wins. Love, the greatest commandment. That's beingness. That's living, breathing individuals, souls, sentient beings. That's who I am. So I'm over here, and when all of us over here are in natural order, we love and take care of each other, and we want to do our best never to trespass or harm another. And if we do, we want to be responsible and accountable for that. So, as I explained, what the court and the summons is about is the living, breathing individuals are holding the living, breathing individuals that are playing the roles over here in the system, that have been saying and doing things that people have been believing, and causing these people over here as an individual, the living, breathing individuals, harm. And these people over here in the system that are playing these roles, the living, breathing ones that are just in the role and in the system, whether they're consciously aware that they're harming or they're just thinking, well, that's just how the system works, because a lot of us have just said that's how the system works. Some people it works for, some people don't, whether it's money, that person gets off, So here, as I explained to them, if it would be like a shake of a hand, it would be like, I'm going to do a deal with you, or I'm sorry, please forgive me, right? Let's make amends. And we would do it heart to heart. That's natural order. Over here, the system has created divide and conquer. Whether it was from a monetary scale, an education scale, a skin color scale, a female, a male scale, roles, responsibilities, it's all about division. Division, division, division. Identifying, again, taking this identification that is not who you are, but they're saying it's who you are, and then putting all those other rules on it. You need that identification to be in this part of that. You get your identification out of that jurisdiction, and you own who you are as a living, breathing soul, having an experience from God, Creator, to be on this planet. You have a completely different experience because that's freedom. So, do I have the freedom to speak? Absolutely. Do I have the freedom to assemble? Absolutely. Do I have the freedom to move? Absolutely. Do I have the freedom to breathe? Absolutely. Do I have the right to health? Absolutely. Do I have the right to abundance and the resources on the land? Absolutely. Has this system wanted to tell me that my freedoms are limited? Absolutely. Has this system over here wanted to tell me that what they believe is true for me? Absolutely. That is intimidation. Intimidation is what I said to them. Essentially, I'm educating you guys because you walk up on my deck uninvited, right? You could have called, but essentially showing up unexpectedly could potentially, depending on who they're showing up at, could cause someone to go, oh, am I in trouble? Like they said, right? The fear level could go up. Thankfully for me, I'm aware of where I live, and it is in a different world than they live. And I explained to them as they had the thing, I said, you also are carrying a firearm, and under criminal code, you're like, that falls under, I think it was 346, section 1, section B, you're carrying a firearm, and essentially there's extortion, you're extorting my joy. Like I could say that. I could say that you're intimidating me because you've shown up here. Right? Is if you wanted just to have a conversation, you could pick up the phone or you could make an appointment. Here's the difference, right? So they feel that they, in their jurisdiction, feel they have the right to just show up on my door, right? And yet earlier yesterday, when I went to the police to give them new evidence for the occurrence file, there are signs all over there, that you just can't walk in to the police station. Right? Oh, due to COVID, you've got to make, only emergencies can happen, or call this number. So I had to call and say, I have some evidence. I had to call, had to make evidence, have to go through 2 doors to get to the glass wall to get to the receptionist. There was no way I could unexpectedly show up on the guys over here in the jurisdiction, right? So all again, this is what I'm talking about is division. So they've never really looked at their roles that way, right? They're aware that their systems don't work. They're aware that there's a lot of issues and nothing's perfect. And so many, whether it's police, or we'll say doctors or nurses or teachers, anyone that's in an organization, a union, there are sometimes Army, Navy, military, that you have orders and your moral compass is saying something completely different. And that's the experience, is whether or not you're able to follow that moral compass. Because that moral compass, that inner guidance is over here in this jurisdiction, the one that says you're a living, breathing woman, man, child. That you're living, breathing, and that guidance, that intelligence that created your body, created this whole world, created this, whatever you want to call it, higher self, source, consciousness, Allah, that experience of source creation. Now, if you honestly don't believe anything created you, that you somehow think it's all science, well, think about the fact that you still were created into this unified field. and full of possibility. And then they created the box over here and said, we're going to take this full possibility and stick you in the box. Then that could make sense why the genie out of the bottle is so important, why the genie could do all these things, because you can do all these things over here in the system, lots of possibilities, but not complete freedom. So the genie, when Aladdin wanted to get out of the bottle, right? He wanted to know what it was, complete freedom, that he wasn't obliged to just make people happy, right? Just to give 3 wishes. He wanted complete freedom and what that felt like. So in this jurisdiction, what the world is, you have the right for complete freedom. You have been conditioned over here in this legal world. This is the lawful world. This is the legal world. And in the legal world, you were conditioned to feel that you had rights and freedom, especially in democratic countries, because you could vote, right? That was the whole thing. You can vote for who is going to tell you what to do. And as long as you get your driver's license, you get your insurance, you register your car, well, then you're legal to drive. Now, if you go and you read about the legalities of driving, they talk about you as a driver. If you, over here in the lawful perspective, I am a living, breathing woman in my car, which is my property, because that's what life is. Property is also my emotions, my feelings, my dreams, not just physical manifestations. It's my conscience. Right? And only I can have my conscience and my set of beliefs. I only know what's going on around me and what I'm feeling. Someone over here in this jurisdiction can't tell me what I'm thinking or feeling. When I said I also have freedom of conscience, the RCMP officer had to look, and he was like, is that in the freedoms, right? And it's like, yeah, the freedom to believe. I have the freedom to do that, and he's like, right, okay. Some people have forgotten they have the freedom to choose their set of beliefs because they've been so conditioned in this box over here. So over here, I can be traveling, okay? I'm traveling, I'm using my property, my car, on a public road to go from A to B. That is the law. That's what's given. One of my friends in Scotland, he was saying that up until 1963, that's what happened. You just drove in the road. And if you took a corner maybe too quickly and there happened to be a little Bobby, by, and he might say, hey, you know what? Your police officer, you took that corner too quickly. You've got to be careful because you wouldn't want to, be a little out of control and harm somebody, right? That's the issue, right? There wasn't this oh, I got to ticket you, you went too fast, because our inner guidance and our intuition, if we're left naturally alone, we naturally come into co-creation. And this is the magic of what's happening right now, because over here, this system seems to have some sort of agenda. Whatever you want to believe about this past year, everybody has different thoughts about it, but they have, in some cases, they change what they're deciding to do regularly. So that was the summons that I sent. I said, attention, system breaker, the living, breathing men and women of the land, commonly known as Prince Edward Island, are holding court, okay? Are listening to the harms that have been created or impacted or experienced, is the word, by these people. So over here, in this space of your jurisdiction, is where all kinds of possibilities and all kinds of freedom lies. Over here, we've been trained to feel limited, okay? The breaking of the system is to say, this system over here, to truly look at it and say, has that worked and benefited the whole? Does every person have fresh water on the planet? Do they have food? Do they have a place to live? Are we treating people with love and respect? Are we really caring for people? Do people know that health and joy and wealth are there available for them? Or are they told, well, you know what, you need to do A, B, C before you get X, Y, Z? Because if you need to do A, B, C before you get X, Y, Z, that's kind of like your mother saying, you know what, I'll give you your allowance if you clean up your room, right? It's like a reward and a consequence. And if you've done any sort of parenting, there's so much evidence that says rewarding behavior doesn't necessarily teach the behavior that you want. Because if you want your child to actually want to clean up their room, if you're just training them like a trained rat that says, here you go, you do this, I'll get you that, right? Now that's how this system has been, and that's how psychology actually was way back in our subconscious, just ran these programs. And that's the old system, that our subconscious was running the programs, that everything that they told us was doing. And right now we're breaking that all down. So that the system's all breaking down because it doesn't work. And in the process, everybody in the world that's aware, we're all chiseling away in our own way. We're all waking up in our own way and saying, wow, you know what? History had issues. Black, indigenous, native, brown, yellow, green, red, however, women, men, churches, it had issues. This history had issues. Got to make sure you stay over on the right side. So the history had issues of the systems that they created has been going on for centuries. And there has been, in a sense, glorified slavery, because there's always been somebody up here, so-called in power, and passing down information, and people have been filing along within the system of what they were educated in to follow and be true. The rebels, the black sheep, the ones that were doing things differently were the outcasts for so many in society, because it's like, why aren't you towing the line? Why can't you just be like this? Well, now in the democratic countries, in a sense, you've got so many people that are wanting to break out of the system and do things differently, that it's like, whoa, it can seem that the system really wants to clamp down and control things. Or it can seem that this is the opportunity of breakdown to breakthrough, that everybody starts to realize, just like you have your own social media page. Maybe you're already off like Facebook and YouTube, and you're off into, BeShoot and Rumble and brand new YouTube and Odyssey and all the others, MeWe and whatever the heck, there's Gap and all kinds of other social media platforms where people are gathering, except you might still be in this system of the original social media platforms. And that's okay if you are, because that's where you are. Because you have to be there to realize, ooh, maybe I want to get out of the box, Jack out of the box, Genie out of the bottle. And over here, it's remembering who you are. Living, breathing, first and foremost, before you were ever given a name, right? Before you were ever, in a sense, your name qualified you to be sold off into this glorified system of servitude. Here is freedom. And if you want to be free, then you start to look at, what do I feel is restricting me? And all of that is up here, because you have a belief. Like before, I used to have a belief where I grew up, like police were there to solely protect the living, breathing men and women like us. Now I've realized that no, the police, especially the RCMP and the police, they serve the corporations. They serve this fictitious money game. They serve the powers over here. They might look like they're here to help, but even these cases where, especially in the Black cultures, right, in the indigenous cultures, in the minority cultures, you've been taken to court, arrested, harmed, murdered, whatever, in those cases because of an officer, or even if you went to trial, you could have been convicted. You could have been the criminal. You could have been the white criminal, and it was a white criminal crime, so it's not so bad because it's just like money laundering or, taking people's life savings away from them, like in the 2008 crash. And this system seemed to have a different answer that wasn't treated just as a harm like this system would say. It would have been natural to say that's harmed. So one of the things I said to them yesterday was, essentially, you guys are listening to the hearsay evidence. Okay, the hearsay evidence. Our chief medical officer is saying there is a pandemic. Now, in lots of places in the world, you might have had all kinds of family members die around you. Okay, so I'm only talking about my experience here on the island. We've had nobody die. We've had one possible hospitalization. They've called it a hospitalization. The person had HIV, has had HIV for a long time, and then they said, oh, they got COVID. Well, they're out of the hospital now. So And so essentially, there's been nothing going on here. Okay. Yet they keep talking about that it's coming. It's coming. It's coming. We have to beware. And I said, if that's the case, if you're going to listen to everything over there that they're telling you, where's the evidence here, though? The evidence here on the island, that's affecting the living, breathing men and women here, right? Hasn't arrived yet. There could be a mass murderer running around Canada. So are we having everybody locked up in their house, waiting to see if he ever crosses the bridge? If he ever gets in a boat and makes it over here, right? So allowing your thoughts to be different can be very frustrating, because you want, if there's a niggling inside you that says, this stuff, this system, what they're telling you doesn't seem to quite jive, but it's like to really allow yourself to be free and to recognize what you're feeling. Oh my gosh, especially if you're older and you've been coping and controlling your emotions and your feelings and doing your best to fit in this box and being the best person and the right person, doing the right thing, it can feel like, oh, because you're literally breaking yourself wide open. You're then having to look at your life and go, oh my gosh, wow, I remember judging that person because I was in this system and I was saying, you're wrong, you shouldn't be doing that. That's not the way it is. Over here, we realize we love each other and we appreciate that everybody can make so-called mistakes, but is it a mistake or is it an opportunity to do something differently? And if someone gets hurt, we say, oh my gosh, or someone gets harmed, we're like, oh, so sorry, that was never the intention, right? Let's rectify that. My girlfriend Melody in Zimbabwe told me when she grew up, or what the tradition was if a person murdered another person, okay, that they already knew that firstborn of the murderer's family would go to the victim's family. Think about that. That was called retribution, reconciliation. So if the murderer killed the victim, the firstborn of the family of the murderer, not necessarily the murderer, right? The murderer's family had to go to the victim's family, and they raised them. So there was a sense of awareness that you're much bigger, your actions are much bigger, and there's a ripple effect, right? Because when you realize we're all in this, we want to make the world work because it's natural within us. It's natural. It's just natural. But yet we've been taught by the system, again over here, that, if we don't have all these rules and regulations, we would have an unruly system. We would have an unruly world. We would have things that we can't control. Well, I can look back over my life, which has almost been 60 years, and say, your system doesn't work. There has always been unrest-ruliness. There have been wars. There's been murders. There's been crime. There's been drug abuse. It's just consistent. There's been poverty. There's been, horrific racism, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's just division, divide, conquer, competition, alienation. Our inalienable rights over here are to live in your jurisdiction free to speak. And it's okay that we have different opinions and we have different experience, because that's what's supposed to occur. We're supposed to be different. We're supposed to honor our uniqueness. We're supposed to love ourselves because we're a creation of God Creator. We're that spark, that ember, that part of the sun. That's who I am. That's how you are. And so the idea is we're to flourish and have experiences and be in awe like the eyes of a child and just go, wow, this is so amazing. I want to experience this. I want to experience this. How can we create this together? We want to create. Over here, the system wants us to fit into their creation. That's been the past. And that is breaking down. And there are probably people in the system over here just going, how long is it going to take these people over here to wake up to who they are? Know your jurisdiction. So after our 30-minute call or conversation out there sort of thing, I, I explained to them that they could have been, it could have been conceived that they were intimidating me, that they're two men. If I had, two men showed up on my deck and I didn't know one of them, right? And essentially, I'm a female, right? I could have been, in a sense, like, whatever. I could have been dressed inappropriately to be greeting somebody at the door, right? I could have been coming out of the shower. You know what I'm saying? And so that too, if that had been the case, I would have been even more vulnerable, right? So these guys over here have never really thought about the mental harm, or have they? Have they already been told and taught the psychological advantage when they show up unexpectedly? Have you ever had the experience when you just see a police car with the lights going and you're doing fine, but you think, did I do something wrong? Right? So all these feelings and ideas are getting cleared out from everybody. That when you realize, if you're standing up for your rights and freedoms, and this system over here is saying, no, you can't do that. If you do that, you're going to be arrested or detained or whichever. It's like, no, I am over here in this world, and I'll help educate you and help to free you if you want to be freed from your limiting beliefs. Only you over here in this world can free yourself. We're shining the light, everybody. We're saying, hey, check out your own thoughts. Check out if you're free in your head. Check out if you're free in your body. Because that's what a child that's moving and grooving, they're free in their body. They're free to play and experience. And then they are educated into believing certain ways. And this past year, we have educated our children about things that, whoa, have all come from over here, very fear-based, and that is affecting their minds, bodies, and their whole way of life. And if you fit, again, in this whole subconscious programming area and beliefs, they are being subconsciously programmed to be like a rat on or gerbil on a wheel, looking for one particular outcome. If we go here and they say, really, they're teaching us to step forward as parents to say, you know what? They have a right to live their life the way they want to. They have a right to go to school. They have a right to breathe. They have a right. They have a right. They're children. They're resilient. Like doctors will tell you, they had more children die of flu. One doctor I interviewed, more children die of flu other years than they've ever had of a COVID case in all of North America. Right? Maybe even the world. So check your beliefs instead of just saying, oh, that's not how it is. It's like, are you absolutely 100% sure what you're speaking is truth? Because there's so much out there on both sides of both sides and every side in between that's expressed. And I go, maybe true, maybe not true, right? Whoever's doing the talking, I go here. So even the doctors that have certain perceptions or beliefs and really are on the, so-called educating people on the RNA, mRNA vaccine, I go, yeah, I understand that. However, I also know doctors that live, and that's where I know them and traveled with some of them, is that divine healings exist. So whether or not there's a gentleman that was the cleanup in Chernobyl, cleanup duty in Chernobyl, the nuclear reactor, and he had completely healed. Gentleman that had Agent Orange, right? Completely healed, came out of Vietnam. These might be, they're just one-offs, but that's the possibility. Then there is just regular old healing. People that were told they could never have children, they have had children. People that have been crippled or, couldn't see or hear, and that all comes back. So that's the land I live in. I live in God, Creator's land, where anything is possible. And I wholeheartedly believe it. That's why I can still have compassion over here, because I was over there. I lived in that system. I thought that system was normal. And so if the breakdown of normal is helping us get to natural, and in the process, they're trying to conform it into a new normal, I totally believe that breakdown leads to breakthrough. As I said to them, breakdown leads to breakthrough. You guys have your own experience in the system. You've got to deal with your superiors or your rules of law that say you're supposed to follow the law, but yet you're still protecting this person or entity, organization, or a title, right? That's your jurisdiction. Out of my jurisdiction. My world, my jurisdiction is freedom. Limitation, freedom. Limitation, freedom. Limitation, freedom. Legal, lawful. Legal, love always wins. Legal, land, air, water. All our resources. Indigenous. Every single person on the planet, on the land you are, has the right to the land and the resources. Corporations, when you live, corporations in this living, breathing world of men and women, there's no corporations because they're a fictitious entity. So all their so-called resources and stuff will have to be reshifted to the individual. How is that going to happen? That's going to be part of the magic. That is going to be how we see this fall apart. And over here, we're experiencing all this co-creation. So this might seem like it's sort of what controlled. A group of people got together and controlled what's going to happen and filtering it down through hearsay evidence, right? The ones that are evidence that are looking at it going, doesn't make sense. But the system isn't looking at the evidence, because if they looked at the evidence, that would be fundamental justice. And if they did fundamental justice, well, then they discover that they can't follow the hearsay evidence. Okay? So that's why it's about you having your experience, because only you know when it's your time for you to be right, when it's your time to wake up, when it's your time to let go of some things. And sometimes some of those people, part of their process in this big plan might be to something other than what other people would expect. And when we trust and believe that everything's happening the way it is, we are going from breaking down these limited legal systems and ways of being that have always been divide and conquer, to this love always wins, unified system where all of us are operating differently. All of us are following our own inner guidance, yet it's all magically fitting together. Worldwide rallies all around the world tomorrow. Okay. Worldwidedemonstration.com if you haven't know where, if find the location nearest you. And after that, July 24th will be the next one. And as these individual living, breathing women and men stand more in knowing who each of us are and our rights and freedoms, and co-creating a brand new way that is win-win-win-win, that people drink and feed and have the resources they need, then in a sense, it can seem like they're tightening the pressure over here because they're losing control. I'd like you to consider that they're tightening the pressure to fine-tune you, like polish you like a diamond, to say, are you really standing in your rights and freedoms? So for me, that was part of the experience last night, having the conversation with them. I could have grabbed my camera. I could have said, okay, you know, you're not in my jurisdiction, go away, right? I could have said that. I felt guided to have a conversation with them off social media and to reach them from a healing perspective, and to have a conversation that maybe they'll go away, maybe, and think about a few things. They did leave with some spiritual brochures about drug healing that I said, distribute to the people that you know have issues, because there's lots of them on the island. And we agreed that the world needs more love. We agree that the world needs more peace, and they liked the fact that they agreed to is the intention of, yeah, if we can be a more loving, kind planet, and that's where we're going, well, they were up for that. Are you up for that? Are you up for standing for your freedom? Are you up for really embodying who you are as God, source, creator, consciousness? Can seem like a big responsibility. And I know for me, I've had to give up a lot of my sense of self because I identified so much over here. But there really is way more freedom over here. Have the experience. Decide for yourself. Transmission out. Lots of love.